Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty. The ship was Earth's best exploration vessel, built with the finest technology humanity could create. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, monitoring the deep space sensors and communication arrays. They had been on patrol for 3 months, checking on the outer colonies and making sure trade routes stayed safe. The communication officer looked up from her console. "Admiral, we're getting a transmission. It's coming. From outside our territory. The signal is stronger than anything we've seen before." Morrison walked over to the main display screen. "Put it through, Lieutenant Brooks." The screen flickered and changed. What appeared made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. A massive alien figure filled the screen. The creature had 4 arms and skin that looked like dark metal. Its eyes were bright yellow and seemed to burn with inner fire. Behind it, Morrison could see what looked like a vast throne room with walls made of some kind of crystal. "I am Emperor Zethkar of the Valdorian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute authority. "I speak to the primitive species that calls itself human." Morrison stepped forward. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Force. We're listening." The Emperor's 4 arms spread wide. "Your species has made a grave error. You have built colonies in systems that belong to the Valdorian Empire. You have sent your ships into space that is ours by right of conquest. This ends now." Captain Lisa Brooks, Earth's chief diplomat, moved to stand beside Morrison. She had spent years learning how to talk with alien species. "Your Imperial Majesty, we were not aware these systems belonged to anyone. Our surveys showed no signs of habitation or claims. Perhaps we can discuss this and find a solution that works for both our peoples." The Emperor's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "There is nothing to discuss. Your species will remove all presence from systems beyond your home star. You have 1 standard galactic year to complete this withdrawal. Any human found beyond Earth's system after this deadline will be destroyed. Any human colony that remains will be eliminated. Any human ship that ventures into our space will be turned to dust." Lisa tried again. "Surely we can reach some kind of agreement. The galaxy is vast. There's room for many species to coexist peacefully. We've always believed in diplomacy and cooperation." The Emperor made a sound that might have been laughter, but it held no warmth. "Watch and understand what happens to those who ignore the will of the Valdorian Empire." The screen changed. Now they could see space, with 3 small moons orbiting a gas giant. The moons looked peaceful and empty of life. Suddenly, beams of pure energy struck each moon from somewhere off-screen. The beams were brighter than stars. Within seconds, the moons began to break apart. Huge chunks of rock flew in all directions. The energy beams continued to fire until nothing remained but clouds of dust and small asteroids. The Emperor's face returned to the screen. "This demonstration used only a tiny fraction of our fleet's power. We have weapons that can turn entire star systems into cosmic dust. We have ships that number in the millions. We have conquered hundreds of worlds and destroyed dozens of species that refused to accept our authority." Morrison felt his jaw clench. The casual way the alien spoke about destroying entire species made his blood run cold. "And if we refuse? Then your species joins the list of those who learned too late that the Valdorian Empire does not make idle threats. You have 1 year. Use it wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Lieutenant Brooks was the first to speak. "Sir, should I contact Earth Command?" Morrison nodded. "Send everything. Full recording of the transmission. All sensor data about their signal source and our current position. Mark it as Priority Alpha." Within hours, the message reached Earth. President Dan Carter was pulled out of a budget meeting and brought to the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. Military leaders, scientists, and diplomats gathered around the large table as the recording played. General Pete Collins, head of Earth Defense Forces, shook his head. We can't fight something like this. Did you see what they did to those moons? Our best weapons couldn't do that much damage to a single asteroid. Dr. Amy Foster, who ran the Colonial Development Program, looked pale. We have over 12 million people living in the outer colonies. Families, children, entire communities. We can't just abandon them. We might not have a choice, Collins replied. Look at the facts. We have maybe 300 ships that could be called warships, and most of those are converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. This empire claims to have millions of ships. Even if they're lying and only have thousands, we're completely outmatched. Secretary of State Helen Davis leaned forward. What do we know about this Valdorian Empire? Has anyone heard of them before? Dr. Martin Wells from the Xenobiology Institute pulled up a holographic display. We've picked up some of their transmissions over the years, but we thought they were just background noise from distant civilizations. From what we can tell, they control a massive area of space, hundreds of star systems, maybe thousands. President Carter studied the faces around the table. What are our options? General Collins opened a folder. Option 1. We do what they say. We evacuate all the outer colonies and bring everyone back to Earth's system. It would be the largest evacuation in human history, but it's possible. How long would that take? Carter asked. At least 2 years with our current fleet. We'd need to build more transport ships. Dr. Foster shook her head. Sir, you don't understand what you're asking. These people left Earth to build new lives. Some of the colonies have been established for over 50 years. We're talking about entire generations who have never seen Earth. Secretary Davis spoke up. Option 2. We try to negotiate. Maybe we can reach some kind of agreement. Perhaps they'd accept tribute or trade agreements. Did you see that alien's face? Collins asked. That wasn't someone interested in negotiation. That was someone used to being obeyed without question. Dr. Wells cleared his throat. There might be a third option. We've been analyzing their transmission signal. It's incredibly powerful, but it also reveals something about their technology. They're using brute force rather than efficiency. Our quantum communication systems are actually more advanced in some ways. What are you saying? Carter asked. I'm saying maybe they're not as advanced as they want us to think. Yes, they have more ships and bigger weapons, but that doesn't mean they're smarter or more innovative. The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what Wells was suggesting, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Finally, Carter spoke. You're talking about fighting them. Collins shook his head. Sir, with respect, that's suicide. Even if we could hurt them, they'd eventually overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Maybe, Carter said slowly. But maybe not. Dr. Wells, how long would it take? To analyze their technology more thoroughly, give me access to all our deep space monitoring stations and a team of our best scientists, and I could have preliminary results in a month. Carter looked around the table one more time. I'm not ready to abandon 12 million people because some alien emperor decided he owns their homes. Dr. Wells, you have your team and full access to whatever you need. General Collins, I want you to start looking at our military capabilities. Not just what we have, but what we could build if we had to. Collins looked uncomfortable. Sir, are you seriously considering war with an interstellar empire? Carter stood up. General, I'm considering defending our people. If that means war, then we better figure out how to win it. As the meeting broke up, each person left with new orders and a growing sense that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. The Valdorian Empire had given them 1 year to surrender everything they had built among the stars. President Carter had just decided that 1 year might be enough time to show them why that was a mistake. Mitchell's smile was cold. We feed them false information. Our AI systems will pretend to be damaged Valdorian ships. Captain Beth Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching her tactical display with grim satisfaction. The Kepler 442 system had become humanity's first real test, and she intended to make it a lesson the Valdorian Empire would never forget. Her fleet consisted of 43 ships, ranging from converted cargo haulers armed with kinetic weapons to purpose-built destroyers fresh from Earth's shipyards. None of them were larger than a Valdorian escort vessel, but each one carried weapons that could punch holes through starship hulls and crews who had volunteered to die if necessary. "Captain, we're detecting hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system," Lieutenant Commander Rick Barnes reported from the sensor station. "Multiple contacts, very large signatures." Morgan nodded. "Here they come. All ships, battle formation, Charlie. Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to teach them a lesson." The Valdorian fleet emerged from hyperspace like a steel wave. Massive battleships that dwarfed the largest human vessels, sleek cruisers bristling with weapons, and clouds of fighters that outnumbered Morgan's entire fleet. At their head was the Imperial flagship, a kilometer-long monster that looked like it could destroy planets. Admiral Kethvor, commanding the Valdorian force, opened communication channels. His image appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. He looked similar to Emperor Zethkar, but younger, with 3 of his 4 arms bearing the ritual scars of a career military officer. Human vessels. "This is Admiral Kethvor of the Valdorian Imperial Navy. You have ignored your Emperor's warning and remained in Imperial space. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be swift." Captain Morgan's response was broadcast to both fleets. "This is Captain Beth Morgan of the United Earth Space Force. This system contains human colonies built by human hands. If you want it, come and take it." The Admiral's expression shifted to what might have been confusion. "You are outnumbered more than 100 to 1. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. This is suicide." "Maybe," Morgan replied, "but it's our choice to make." The first exchange happened at maximum weapon range. Valdorian plasma beams lanced out across space, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city block. Human ships, scattered like leaves in a hurricane, but 3 destroyers were too slow. The UES Hartford, the UES Denver, and the UES Tampa disappeared in balls of superheated gas. But the human fleet didn't break formation. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the Valdorian ships, closing the distance at speeds that made Admiral Kethavor's tactical officers double-check their sensors. "Sir, the human vessels are moving faster than our projections indicated," reported his chief navigator. "At this rate of closure, they'll be within their weapons range in 43 minutes. Impossible. No species builds ships that fast without making them too fragile to survive combat." He was about to learn how wrong he was. The human ships reached optimal firing range and opened up with everything they had. Kinetic projectiles moving at 12% of light speed slammed into Valdorian shields. Most of them were deflected or absorbed, but a few punched through to strike hull plating. Admiral Kethvor watched his damage reports with growing alarm. "How are their primitive weapons penetrating our shields?" His science officer looked confused. "Sir, they're not using energy weapons at all. They're firing solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our shields are designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, not physical objects moving that fast." The human attack continued, but it wasn't the weapons that worried the Admiral. It was their tactics. The human ships weren't fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They didn't retreat when damaged. They didn't try to preserve their forces for future battles. Instead, they accelerated toward his ships with what could only be described as controlled fury. The UES Boston, under Captain John Miller, took a direct hit that vaporized half its hull. Instead of retreating, Miller used his remaining engines to ram the ship directly into a Valdorian cruiser. The Boston's fusion reactor went critical just as it penetrated the alien ship's shields, creating a blast that gutted both vessels. "Sir, we just lost the Kethmar," reported the tactical officer. "The humans rammed it with one of their damaged ships." Admiral Kethvor stared at his display. "They destroyed their own ship to damage ours?" "Yes, sir. And it appears to be intentional. We're detecting similar maneuvers from other human vessels." The UES Phoenix, commanded by Commander Kate Phillips, had its weapons destroyed by enemy fire. Phillips ordered her crew to overload the ship's power systems while flying directly into a formation of Valdorian fighters. The resulting electromagnetic pulse disabled 27 enemy craft before the Phoenix broke apart from structural stress. Throughout the battle, the human ships transmitted everything they learned back to Earth and to other human fleets. Every weapons hit, every tactical maneuver, every piece of intelligence about Valdorian technology was recorded and sent via quantum communication to Admiral Morrison's main fleet. Dr. Tony Lewis, monitoring the battle from Earth, watched his unrestricted AI systems analyze the incoming data in real time. The artificial minds processed Valdorian tactics, identified weaknesses in their formation discipline, and began developing countermeasures that would be ready for the next engagement. "They're learning," Lewis reported to President Carter. "Every ship we lose is teaching us something about how to hurt them." Captain Morgan's own ship, the Defender, had lost shields and weapons. Her crew was down to emergency life support, but she wasn't finished. "All remaining ships, Formation Omega. Time to show them what humans do when we're cornered. Formation." Omega was something no other species had ever attempted, a coordinated suicide attack designed to inflict maximum damage while gathering maximum intelligence. The surviving human ships accelerated toward the largest Valdorian vessels, their crews broadcasting final messages home while their AI systems recorded every detail of the enemy's point defense systems. The UES Liberty's Light, commanded by Captain Neil Brooks, managed to ram its way through the shields of a Valdorian battleship. As the ship broke apart from the impact, its crew manually detonated the fusion warheads they had been carrying as spare ammunition. The explosion tore a hole in the battleship's hull large enough to fly a cruiser through. One by one, the human ships died, but each death cost the Valdorians more than they had expected to pay. Admiral HFY watched his fleet's casualties mount with growing disbelief. 17 ships destroyed, 31 damaged, and over 4,000 Imperial crew members dead or wounded, all to claim a system defended by 43 primitive vessels. Captain Morgan's ship was the last one still fighting. The Defender had no weapons, no shields, and hull breaches on every deck. Half her crew was dead, and the other half was working by emergency lighting. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "Admiral HFY is hailing us." "Put him through." The Valdorian admiral appeared on her screen. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. "Human captain, your fleet is destroyed. Your resistance is ended. Why do you continue to fight?" Morgan looked around her ruined bridge. "Because this is our system, and these are our people. If you want them, you'll have to take them from us. You cannot win. You have no weapons left." "I have one weapon left," Morgan replied. "I have my ship." She ordered her remaining crew to the escape pods, then locked herself in the captain's chair with manual control of the ship's engines. The Defender's fusion drive flared to life one last time, pushing the battered vessel toward the Valdorian flagship. Admiral HFY could have destroyed the ship easily, but something stopped him. Perhaps it was respect for an enemy who refused to surrender. Perhaps it was curiosity about how far the humans would go. He watched as the small human vessel approached his massive flagship with obvious intent to ram. At the last moment, Captain Morgan transmitted one final message. It went to the Valdorian fleet, to the human colonies, and to Earth itself. "Tell them we took down 27 of their ships. Tell them this is just the beginning." The Defender struck the flagship's shield generators and exploded. The blast knocked out the ship's main shields and damaged its primary weapon arrays. Admiral HFY was thrown from his command chair as his flagship shuddered from the impact. When the battle was over, the Valdorian Empire controlled the Kepler 442 system. But the victory had cost them more ships than they had lost in the previous 50 years of conquest. Worse, they realized they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. The humans hadn't tried to preserve their forces. They hadn't retreated when the battle turned against them. They hadn't surrendered when facing impossible odds. Instead, they had fought with a desperation that was both terrifying and effective. Admiral Kethvor sent his report to Emperor Zethkar with growing unease. The humans had been defeated, but they had made that defeat expensive. If every human system fought like this one, the Empire would lose thousands of ships before the war ended. But the most troubling part of his report was the final observation. Throughout the entire battle, the humans had been transmitting detailed intelligence about Valdorian tactics and technology to their OT. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Revolution, watching the largest fleet in human history prepare for what would either be their greatest victory or their final defeat. The ship around him hummed with the power of technologies that hadn't existed a year ago, built by an industrial capacity that had transformed Earth into a weapons factory. 2,000 ships stretched across space in formations that defied traditional military doctrine. Massive carriers launched swarms of unmanned fighters, while heavy destroyers bristled with kinetic weapons that could punch through any known armor. But the most dangerous vessels in the fleet were the smallest ones, single-pilot attack craft that moved faster than anything the Valdorians had ever seen. "Admiral, we're approaching the edge of the Valdorian home system," reported Commander Sarah Martinez from the navigation station. "Long-range sensors are detecting their home fleet. It's bigger than our intelligence estimated." Morrison studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The enemy fleet was impressive, over 800 capital ships arranged in perfect formation around their homeworld. It was the kind of display meant to intimidate attackers into retreat. But humanity had moved beyond intimidation. "Signal all ships," Morrison ordered. "Operation Swarm is now active. All captains are cleared to engage targets of opportunity. Remember, we're not here to occupy their world. We're here to show them that threatening humanity has consequences." The human fleet dispersed into attack formations that looked like chaos to trained military observers. Instead of orderly lines of battle, thousands of ships scattered in all directions, each one following a different approach vector. It was madness by conventional standards, but it was madness with a purpose. Captain Ross Turner commanded the UES Defiance, one of the new heavy destroyers built according to Dr. Richard Hayes's radical designs. His ship was ugly and brutal, with weapons that took up 60% of its mass and armor that could barely protect the crew quarters, but it could kill things that ships twice its size couldn't touch. "Captain, we're being targeted by 3 Valdorian battleships," his weapons officer reported. "They're trying to get a target lock with their plasma batteries." Turner smiled. "Let them try. Helm, give me a random evasion pattern. Weapons, target their shield generators with kinetic penetrators." The Defiance danced through space like a fighter craft, its advanced engines allowing maneuvers that would have torn apart older ships. Valdorian plasma beams passed through empty space where the ship had been moments before. Meanwhile, Turner's weapons fired solid projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed. The first volley struck the lead battleships forward, shields. The kinetic energy was absorbed, but the shield generators had to work harder to dissipate the heat. The second volley hit the same spot, overloading the grid. The third volley punched straight through the weakened shields and tore into the ship's hull. "Target damaged but still operational," the weapons officer reported. "They're trying to rotate to bring fresh shield generators to bear. Then we'll hit them from a different angle. Helm, bring us around their port side. Weapons, prepare the special ammunition." The special ammunition was Dr. Hayes's latest innovation, kinetic projectiles that carried small fusion warheads. They weren't meant to explode on impact. Instead, they were designed to penetrate deep into enemy ships before detonating, causing internal damage that no shield could prevent. Commander Diane Clark's carrier group operated differently. Her ship, the UES Prometheus, launched waves of unmanned fighters controlled by the unrestricted AI systems that Dr. Tony Lewis had developed. Each drone was a learning machine that adapted to enemy tactics in real time. The first wave of drones died quickly, overwhelmed by Valdorian point defense systems. But their sacrifice wasn't in vain. Every destroyed fighter transmitted its combat data back to the carrier, where the AI systems processed the information and updated the programming of the next wave. The second wave lasted longer, using evasion, patterns learned from the first wave's deaths. The third wave began scoring hits on enemy ships. By the fourth wave, the drones were outflying Valdorian pilots who had trained for decades. Ma'am, the AI systems are requesting permission to implement what they're calling the Cascade Protocol, reported Lieutenant Kim Foster from the AI Coordination Station. What's the Cascade Protocol? The drones want to share their learning, experiences in real time instead of waiting to transmit data back to us. They believe they can adapt faster than the enemy can counter-adapt. Clark hesitated. The Cascade Protocol violated every safety restriction they had ever placed on AI systems. It would essentially create a networked artificial intelligence that learned from every engagement across the entire battlefield. Permission granted. Activate Cascade Protocol. Within minutes, the change was visible. Human drones began moving, with inhuman precision, anticipating Valdorian tactics and countering them before the enemy could react. Fighter craft that had been built in Earth's shipyards weeks ago were now flying like they had decades of combat experience. Admiral Kethvor, commanding the Valdorian home fleet from his flagship, watched the human attack with growing alarm. This wasn't the same primitive enemy he had faced at Kepler. These humans had learned from their defeat and improved their tactics beyond recognition. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties across all formations," reported his tactical officer. "The human ships are using coordinated attacks that target our weak points simultaneously. How are they coordinating? We're jamming their communications." "They don't appear to be using traditional communications, sir. Their ships are acting independently, but with perfect tactical coordination. What the Valdorians didn't understand was that humanity had abandoned traditional command structures. Instead of having admirals give orders to captains who passed them down to crews, each human ship was controlled by AI systems that made decisions at the speed of light. When Commander Paul Watson's squadron encountered a formation of Valdorian cruisers protected by overlapping shield generators, his AI systems didn't request orders from Fleet Command. Instead, they analyzed the shield pattern, identified the weak points, and coordinated with other nearby ships to execute a simultaneous attack. Watson's ships fired their kinetic weapons at nearby asteroids, accelerating chunks of rock to relativistic speeds. The improvised projectiles struck the Valdorian shields from dozens of different angles simultaneously, overloading the generators and creating gaps that human weapons could exploit. "Sir, that's impossible," Watson's science officer said as they watched Valdorian ships trying to defend against the asteroid bombardment. "How did our AI calculate the trajectories for that many moving objects?" "The same way it calculates everything else," Watson replied, "by thinking faster than they can." React! The battle raged across the entire star system. Human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking targets that shouldn't have been vulnerable, using tactics that violated conventional military wisdom. Every time the Valdorians adapted to counter one approach, the humans switched to something completely different. Captain Lisa Brooks, now commanding the heavy cruiser UES Constitution, found herself facing a Valdorian dreadnought that outweighed her ship 10-1. Traditional tactics would have called for her to retreat and call for support. Instead, she ordered her crew to implement what they called the Mad Dog Protocol. All power to engines, disable safety systems. I want maximum acceleration toward that dreadnought. Her crew looked at her like she had lost her mind, but they followed orders. The Constitution accelerated directly at the enemy ship, ignoring the plasma beams that were tearing apart her hull. At the last moment, Brooks ordered her weapons to fire directly into the dreadnought's main gun ports. The kinetic projectiles, traveling at nearly 15% of light speed, punched through the dreadnought's weapon systems and continued into its power core. The resulting explosion tore the massive ship in half. "Ma'am, we've lost engines, weapons, and life support." reported her tactical officer. "We're dead in space." "But so are they," Brooks replied with satisfaction. "Signal for pickup. Mission accomplished." Throughout the battle, human ships traded their lives at ratios that defied belief. But unlike at Kepler, they were learning from each engagement and applying those lessons immediately. The Valdorian fleet found itself fighting an enemy that adapted faster than they could counter. Dr. Tony Lewis, monitoring the battle from his command center on Earth, watched his AI systems evolve in real time. The Cascade Protocol was working, better than he had dared hope. Human ships were sharing tactical innovations across the entire fleet at the speed of light. "Sir, the AI systems are reporting something unusual," said his chief programmer. "They're claiming that Valdorian ship networks have a vulnerability." "What kind of vulnerability?" "The aliens use centralized command systems. If we can hack into their network, we might be able to feed them false information or even take control of their ships." Lewis studied the data streaming across his screens. "Do it. Upload the virus packages we developed for electronic warfare." Within minutes, Valdorian ships began receiving false orders from their own command systems. Some were told to target friendly vessels. Others received navigation data that sent them into collision courses with asteroids. The confusion. 2 years after the first Valdorian warning, Emperor Zethkar stood in what remained of his empire's most secure orbital command station. The massive structure, once a symbol of imperial power that could coordinate fleets across hundreds of star systems, was now a twisted wreck of metal and crystal. Human ships had somehow penetrated its defenses and convinced the station's own AI systems to turn against their Valdorian operators. The war had lasted longer than any conflict in imperial history, and the cost had been devastating. What should have been a simple extermination of a primitive species had become a grinding campaign that drained resources from across the empire. Worse, news of human victories had spread to subject races throughout Valdorian space, sparking rebellions that forced the empire to fight on dozens of fronts simultaneously. "Your Majesty!" Admiral Kethvor approached the Emperor's temporary command center. The admiral looked older than his years, worn down by 2 years of fighting an enemy that refused to follow any logical military doctrine. "President Carter has agreed to meet with you via quantum communication." The Emperor's 4 arms clenched into fists. The fact that he was speaking with the human leader as an equal rather than accepting their surrender was a humiliation that burned in his chest. But reality could not be ignored. The Empire was bleeding ships and crew faster than they could be replaced, while human fleets seemed to grow stronger with every battle. The communication array activated, and President Carter's image appeared in the holographic display. The human leader looked tired, but determined, and there was something in his eyes that made the Emperor uncomfortable. It was the look of someone who had been pushed beyond their breaking point and discovered they were stronger than they had imagined. "Emperor Zethkar," Carter said with a slight nod that barely qualified as respectful. "I understand you wanted to discuss terms." "Terms," the Emperor repeated, tasting the word like poison. "Yes, terms for ending this conflict." "I'm listening." The Emperor had prepared for this moment, but the words still came with difficulty. "The Valdorian Empire is prepared to recognize human territorial claims in the systems you currently occupy. In return, humanity will cease all military operations against Imperial forces." Carter was quiet for a moment, studying the Emperor's face. "That's a start. What about reparations for the colonies you attacked?" "Reparations?" The Emperor's voice rose. "You dare demand payment from the Empire?" "I dare demand payment for the 12,000 colonists who died in your initial attacks," Carter replied calmly. "I dare demand compensation for the families you destroyed when you decided our people were worth less than your expansion plans." The Emperor felt his control slipping. 2 years ago, no primitive species would have spoken to him this way. Now he found himself negotiating with a race that had proven they could hurt the Empire in ways he had never imagined possible. Admiral Morrison, now Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, appeared beside President Carter in the holographic display. The human military leader had become something of a legend among Valdorian officers, known for tactics that bordered on the supernatural in their effectiveness. "Your Majesty," Morrison said, "let me make our position clear. Humanity has established permanent military bases in 12 star systems that were previously under Imperial control. Those bases are defended by fleets that have proven capable of holding their own against your forces. We're not asking for your permission to stay. We're informing you that we're staying." The Emperor looked at his own military advisors. Admiral Kethavor gave a slight nod, confirming what they all knew. The humans had indeed established bases that would be extremely difficult to remove. Each one was defended by ships that used tactics no Imperial commander had successfully countered. "Furthermore," Morrison continued, "we've received requests for alliance from 17 species currently under Imperial rule. Some of them have already begun coordinating their resistance movements with our strategic planners. This was the nightmare the Emperor had feared most. The human war had shown other species that the Valdorian Empire could be fought and hurt. Rebellions were spreading across Imperial space like wildfire, each one inspired by humanity's refusal to surrender." Captain Laura Davis, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Valdorian Empire, spoke for the first time. "Your Majesty, we're not interested in destroying your empire. We never were. All we wanted was to be left alone to build our lives among the stars." "Then why did you continue fighting after we offered to let you withdraw to your home system?" Davis smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because you made a fundamental error in judgment. You assumed we would abandon our people to save ourselves. You forgot that humans don't leave family behind." President Carter leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. Humanity will maintain its current territorial holdings. We'll establish formal diplomatic relations with the Empire, and we'll provide technical assistance to help you deal with the rebellions that our war has inspired." The Emperor's advisors looked alarmed. "You would help us suppress rebellions?" "No," Carter said firmly. "We'll help you negotiate with them. We'll help you find peaceful solutions to conflicts that you've been trying to solve with force. Because the alternative is watching your empire tear itself apart while we build our own civilization in the ruins." The offer was both generous and terrifying. The humans were essentially proposing to help hold the empire together while establishing themselves as equals within it. It was not the unconditional surrender the Emperor had expected to demand, but it might be the only way to prevent total Imperial collapse. Dr. Richard Hayes appeared in the human transmission. His weapons research had made him one of the most feared humans in Imperial space, but now he was offering something different. "Your Majesty, we've learned things about warfare that no civilization should have to discover through experience. Our AI combat systems, our defensive technologies, our ship design principles. We're willing to share some of these innovations with Imperial forces, but only as part of a comprehensive peace agreement." The Emperor understood the implicit threat. Human technology had proven superior to Imperial systems in multiple engagements. The offer to share it was balanced by the knowledge that humanity could continue to advance their military capabilities faster than the Empire could counter them. Admiral Morrison pulled up tactical displays showing human fleet positions. "We currently have over 8,000 combat vessels deployed across 17 star systems. Our shipyards are producing new vessels at a rate of approximately 200 per month. Our AI systems have evolved to the point where they can coordinate fleet actions across multiple star systems simultaneously." The numbers were staggering. In 2 years, humanity had built a fleet that rivaled the Empire's core military strength. More importantly, they had proven that their ships could fight and win against Imperial forces that should have overwhelmed them through sheer numbers. What guarantees do we have that humanity will honor this agreement? The Emperor asked. President Carter's expression hardened. The same guarantee we've always given. We keep our word and we protect our people. Cross us, and you'll learn exactly how much damage we can do when we stop trying to be reasonable. The Emperor looked around his ruined command center, at the reports of rebellions across his empire, at the tactical displays showing human ships in systems that had been imperial territory for centuries. The choice was clear. Negotiate with humanity as equals, or watch the empire collapse under the weight of endless warfare. Very well, he said finally. The Valdorian Empire accepts your terms. The formal peace negotiations took months, but the fundamental agreement was simple. Humanity would maintain its territorial claims and establish permanent diplomatic relations with the Empire. In return, human technical advisors would help Imperial forces develop new strategies for dealing with rebellious species through negotiation rather than conquest. The most significant change was cultural. The Empire had built its identity around the assumption that superior force could solve any problem. Humanity had proven that assumption wrong by refusing to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. Now, other species throughout Imperial space were testing the same principle. Captain Beth Morgan, posthumously promoted to Admiral, became the first human to have a statue erected in an Imperial capital. Her final battle at Kepler was studied in military academies throughout Valdorian space as an example of how determination could overcome technological disadvantage. Dr. Tony Lewis found himself in the unexpected position of helping to redesign Imperial AI systems to be less vulnerable to the kind of electronic warfare that had proven so devastating during the human conflict. His work led to a new generation of artificial intelligence that was more robust and less centralized. The most lasting impact of the war was philosophical. The Valdorian Empire had been built on the principle that strength was the only currency that mattered in galactic politics. Humanity had demonstrated that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the willingness to sacrifice everything was more powerful than the ability to destroy everything. Admiral Morrison established the Human Defense Command with headquarters on a space station. Captain Jake Martinez sat in his chair and stared at the screen. The numbers kept changing. Green lights blinked on and off. The computer was working hard to understand something. Jake had been watching this for 3 days now. He worked on a space station called Cerberus. His job was to listen for signals from deep space. The signal had come from very far away, 12 light years from Earth. That was a long way. So far, that light took 12 years to travel from there to here. Jake had never heard anything like this signal before. It was not from humans. It was from something else. The computer was trying to translate the signal. It was like learning a new language. But this language was not from Earth. It was alien. The computer worked day and night. It compared sounds and patterns. It tried to find meaning in the strange words. Jake drank his coffee and waited. He had been doing this job for 5 years. Most days were quiet. Space was big and empty. But today was different. Today, something was talking to them from the stars. The translation program made a sound. It had finished working. Jake looked at the screen. Words appeared in English. His eyes grew wide as he read them. Please, anyone who receives this, the Devourers have found us. Our fleets are broken. Our worlds burn. We are the Kalani Republic. We were once proud defenders of the outer spiral. If there are any civilizations capable of faster-than-light travel, we beg you, do not come. Do not try to help. The Devourers consume everything. They turn our own people against us. Save yourselves. Remember us as we were. Jake read the message again. Then he read it a third time. His hands shook as he reached for the communication panel. This was big. This was the biggest thing that had ever happened. Aliens were real. They were in trouble. They were asking for help. but telling people not to come. He opened a channel to Earth Command. The signal would take time to reach Earth. Even with their fastest communication systems, it took several minutes. Jake recorded the message. He sent the alien signal. He sent his own report. Then he waited. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Hayes was in her office. She was reading reports when the message arrived. Her computer made a sound, a priority message from deep space. She opened it and began to read. Her face changed as she read the words. Lisa had been waiting for this day. She had hoped it would never come, but she had prepared for it anyway. The military had plans for contact with hostile aliens. They had been making these plans for 10 years, ever since humans learned how to travel faster than light. She picked up her phone and called General Peter Stone. He answered on the first ring. "Peter, we got one," she said. "A contact?" he asked. "Hostile. They call themselves Devourers. They are attacking someone called the Kalani Republic. The aliens are asking for help but telling everyone to stay away." "How long until the president knows?" "I am calling him next." Lisa hung up and dialed another number. This call went directly to the White House. President Rick Coleman answered his secure line. "Mr. President, this is Admiral Hayes. We have received first contact with alien life. The situation is urgent." 20 minutes later, Lisa sat in the Oval Office. President Coleman read the translated message. Defense Secretary Carol Jenkins was there too. They all looked serious. "How do we know this is real?" the president asked. "We have confirmed the signal source," Lisa said. "It came from the Kalani system. Our deep space telescopes show signs of massive destruction there. Whole planets are dark." "This is real, sir." President Coleman stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the White House lawn. Children were playing nearby. Their parents watched them with smiles. Everyone was safe. Everyone was happy. They did not know that something terrible was happening 12 light years away. "What do our military experts say?" he asked. Lisa opened her folder. "Sir, we have been preparing for this possibility. Special Operations Command has been developing response protocols for 10 years. They have a unit ready for exactly this kind of threat." "What kind of unit?" "The 1st Xenological Warfare Battalion. 300 of our best soldiers. They have been training for alien combat. They have special equipment, enhanced abilities. We call them the Reaper Pack." The president turned around. "You want to send soldiers to help these Kalani?" "Sir, the aliens specifically warned us not to come. But they also said the Devourers consume everything. If these Devourers win, they might come here next. We can stop them there, or we can wait for them to come here." Defense Secretary Jenkins spoke up. "Mr. President, we have children on this planet, families, billions of people who cannot defend themselves against something like this. Our military exists to protect them." President Coleman sat down at his desk. He thought about his own children. They were safe at school right now. But what if these Devourers came to Earth? What if his children faced the same fate as the Kalani? How long would it take to reach the Kalani system? He asked. 18 days with our fastest ship, Lisa answered. And you think 300 soldiers can stop an enemy that destroyed an entire alien civilization? Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. Mr. President, these aliens have never met humans before. They do not know what we are capable of. They have never faced Earth's apex predators. The president was quiet for a long time. He thought about the message. The aliens were dying. They were asking for help but telling people to stay away. They were trying to protect others from their fate. But humans were different. Humans did not run from bullies. Humans did not let innocent people die when they could help. That was not who they were. What do you need from me? President Coleman asked. Full authorization for Operation Shepherd, Lisa said. Complete tactical authority for Colonel Danny Wright and his unit, and permission to use any resources necessary. The president picked up his pen. He signed the authorization papers. As he wrote his name, he thought about the message again. The aliens said to remember them as they were. But maybe humans could give them a chance to be remembered as survivors instead. "Admiral Hayes," he said as he finished signing, "you are authorized to deploy the Reaper Pack. Bring our new friends home safe." Lisa stood up and saluted. "Yes, sir. The wolves are going hunting." Back on the space station Cerberus, Jake Martinez was still monitoring the alien signal. It kept repeating. Every few hours, the same desperate message played again. The aliens were still broadcasting. They were still alive. Jake had sent 17 updates to Earth Command. Each one confirmed that the signal was still active. The Kalani were still fighting. They were still hoping someone would hear their call. He did not know that help was already coming. 300 human soldiers were preparing to travel 12 light years. They were loading weapons that no alien had ever seen. They were planning tactics that no enemy had ever faced. The Kalani had asked the universe to remember them. But humans were going to do something better. They were going to make sure the Kalani had a future to remember. Jake looked at his screen one more time. The alien words scrolled past. He whispered to himself, "Hold on. Help is coming." In space, there is no sound. But if there had been, the universe might have heard the sound of Earth's children preparing for war. The apex predators were awake. The hunt was about to begin.